The Galactic Empire's observation deck, 12A, hung in orbit like a jeweled tick clinging to a warm planet, its hull gleaming with ceremonial platinum plating that served no purpose beyond status signaling. Inside, the air reeked faintly of sterilizing mist and overconfidence. "Are you seeing this?" Admiral Slust's voice oozed condescension as he reclined in his hydraulic throne chair, 9 limbs spread like smug punctuation marks around his corpulent body. He gestured lazily toward the central hollow array, where humans laughed through what appeared to be a crude obstacle course laced with explosions and cartoonish enemy mannequins. "It's theater. I've seen larval plays with more credible threats." Varnix, junior xenoanthropologist, and the only crew member with both a working nervous system and a growing sense of dread, adjusted his ocular folds and blinked twice to activate his neural lens. The footage, borrowed from the human's open-source entertainment archive, looped with irritating cheer. Dirt-smudged human soldiers ducking, diving, grinning through dirt and gunfire. "They call it reality television," Varnix murmured. "It's heavily edited, dramatized, and yet I sense something underneath. A current. Something that doesn't belong in propaganda." Slust waved a flabby appendage. "Please. These mammals record every bowel movement and mistake it for history. If their combat techniques were half as polished as their melodrama, perhaps they'd pose a risk." A low buzz passed through the observation bay as other officers chuckled. The laughter came easy, cultivated like algae on an overfed tank. But Varnix didn't laugh. His tendrils stiffened slightly as he leaned forward. "Sir," he said, choosing his words with the careful slowness of someone navigating both a hierarchy and a landmine. "This woman, Commander Emily Shaw, she appears in multiple segments across different human conflicts. Different planets. Different years." Slust yawned. "Ah yes. They're harrowing. Another warrior queen myth, no doubt. Probably made it to an actor and promoted by popular vote." "No, sir. She's real. And consistent." On screen, Emily strode calmly across a simulated battlefield. Her uniform was practical, smeared with what the humans called camo. She wasn't shouting. She wasn't dramatic. She was explaining flanking patterns to a subordinate with the casual grace of a schoolteacher discussing geometry. And then came the smile. A brief one. Flat. No teeth. But it lingered in the back of Varnix's mind like the echo of a predator's growl in a dark forest. "She does not relish the conflict," he said softly, almost to himself. "She orchestrates it." Slust's grin turned oily. "How poetic. Varnix, you've been studying too much pre-contact Terran literature. What's next? You'll suggest we surrender to their cooking channels." "I merely suggest caution." "And I suggest," Slust replied, "that you remember your rank. We invited these humans to demonstrate their martial capabilities, and they sent us dance routines." The deck's lighting dimmed slightly as a new segment loaded. This one labeled Joint Combat Exercise, Lunar Drift Zone, Human Simulation Team. Slust's eyes gleamed. "Ah, now this, I'm told, is them at their finest." The screen flickered into life, revealing a gray dust ball moon-dotted with metallic wreckage. The humans stood in a loose cluster, laughing and slapping one another's backs. Emily Shaw stood at the center, arms behind her back, smile calm as ever. A voiceover, one of the human instructors, apparently, drifted in. "Scenario begins in T-1 minute. Team Omega, Human Response Division, led by Lieutenant Commander Emily Shaw, will engage the Galactic Empire's Tactical Unit Bravo. This is a friendly simulation." Slust smirked. "Friendly. Excellent. Let's see how friendly she stays when under pressure." The simulation began. Within seconds, the humans vanished from the central feed. The Imperial analysts muttered, "Where are their signatures?" Scrambled. "They're using, wait, I think that's debris netting? And is that heat masking gel?" "Primitive." "No," Varnix murmured. "Effective." Bravo unit soldiers advanced in a tight formation, sensor sweeping. Slust leaned forward, suddenly alert. Then came the first detonation. Not flashy. Controlled. Targeted. 3 Imperial units vanished from the screen. Slust's smugness twitched. On screen, A helmet cam blinked active. A human voice crackled in over open channels. "Hello, Imperial friends. Just letting you know we've relocated your artillery drone. Hope you weren't attached to it. Anyway, we'll be over here, probably behind you. But who knows?" A second explosion. Then a third. The simulation's topographical overlay showed Team Omega looping behind enemy lines, dividing into micro-teams, deploying decoys. The enemy couldn't pin them down. "They don't follow standard military doctrine," said a technician, confused. "Their patterns are chaotic." "No," Varnix corrected, "they're adaptive. They respond faster than we calculate. They're improvising." Sluzd was silent now. Then a new feed opened. Shaw's private comms. It had been intercepted for analysis. She was sipping from a cup, talking to her second-in-command. "If they had any real idea what we were capable of, they'd be running simulations on us, not the other way around." More laughter. Casual warm. Like this was brunch. Varnix felt his primary heart stutter. What species makes war sound like friendship? Sluzd finally growled. "This is only a drill. The outcome proves nothing. Simulations can be gamed." "But they didn't cheat," said Varnix, eyes locked on the feed. "They adapted. They anticipated. They even left a message." The scene on screen froze on a drone shot. The wreckage of the Empire's forward camp, a white flag fluttering above a stack of politely folded uniforms. Painted on the wall, behind in human script were the words, "We come in peace. We just prepare for war better than you." Sluzd's expression curdled. "Turn it off." But off. The screen went black. In the silence that followed, even the deck's usual hum seemed muted. Sluzd inhaled deeply, nostrils flaring. Enough theater. Initiate diplomatic measures. Let's see how polite they are in person. The command was sent. A signal flashed across systems, activating the Empire's formal contact protocols. They would invite the human commander aboard the cruiser. With luck, they could deconstruct her psychology in person, perhaps even intimidate her into revealing tactical weaknesses. Varnix, however, remained still. His limbs curled inwards, a defense posture older than language. There was something about her, something beneath the pleasant tone and smiling eyes. He'd seen it before, not in humans, but in predators that hunted in pairs, who feigned play, who waited patiently, claws hidden. Hours later, Emily Shaw arrived. She stepped from the landing dock in a crisp black uniform, hands relaxed behind her back. She had no weapons. She didn't need them. A gift basket hung from her elbow, preserved earth fruits, a bottle of what she called bourbon, and a note written in looping cursive. Sluzd greeted her with bloated ceremony. "Lieutenant Commander Shaw," he said, voice full of oily charm. "A pleasure." "The pleasure's mine," she replied with a warm smile. "Thank you for the invitation. I brought snacks." "Ah," Sluzd said, eyeing the basket. "A human tradition, I assume?" She nodded. "Where I'm from, it's good manners to bring a gift, especially when visiting a potential opponent's stronghold." Sluzd's smile froze. "Opponent. Just a figure of speech," she said, blinking innocently. They led her to the observation bay. The footage replayed. Simulation, combat, infiltration, the flag message. She watched quietly. Sluzd turned to her. "You understand, of course, that the Empire does not consider simulations a definitive measurement of power." She tilted her head. "Of course not. After all, you're not afraid of a little game, are you?" He bared his fangs. Varnix watched her face. Every word, every glance was calculated. Not a flicker wasted. She wasn't just a commander. She was a mirror, reflecting back everything the Empire believed about itself, until the image cracked. Then came her final line. "I'm here to extend peace," she said simply. "Sincerely. But we like to make sure our partners understand the texture of our sincerity." "What kind of peace includes threats?" Sluzd growled. She sipped from a glass of water. "What kind of empire thinks a handshake doesn't hide a fist?" Varnix couldn't breathe. The room chilled. Emily Shaw rose from her chair, adjusted her cuffs, and placed the gift basket on the console. "I'd suggest reviewing your archives again," she said. "You might find the next footage a little more enlightening." She turned on her heel and walked out. Varnix watched her go. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't made a single overt threat. And yet the silence left in her wake vibrated with the weight of unspoken war. Sluzd slumped back into his throne. "Send for analysts," he rasped. "All of them. I want everything on this woman. Her history, her habits, her hobbies." Varnix didn't respond, because deep inside, he already knew. Whatever they found wouldn't matter. They'd already lost the war they hadn't dared to declare. And Emily Shaw had offered them peace, which meant she already knew how to end them, with or without a fight. The moons of Torokal drifted through orbit like pearls on invisible thread, their dust-choked surfaces ideal for war games and false peace. The Galactic Empire had chosen the third moon, a flat-bellied rock with just enough atmosphere to host the simulation without the inconvenience of suffocation. To them, it was a staging ground. To the humans, it was something else entirely. Lieutenant Commander Emily Shaw stood at the edge of the drop platform, helmet under one arm, the other hand stuffed casually into the pocket of her combat trousers. She was humming, not a war song, a lullaby, something ancient and sweet, passed down in broken households and whispering kitchens. Around her, her team prepped in silence. No wasted movement, no banter. They had passed that stage hours ago. Now there was only readiness. And Emily, serene as a statue, was the eye of the storm they hadn't yet unleashed. Above them, orbiting in its imperial smugness, the observation cruiser shimmered. Inside, Admiral Sluzd reclined once again in his grotesquely lavish chair, flanked by his favorite sycophants and increasingly jittery analysts. He watched the feed with all the patience of a predator watching prey perform tricks. But Varnix, now promoted to temporary liaison given his growing fluency in Terran behavioral nonsense, sat apart, eyes narrowed, throat pulsing in time with his thoughts. He remembered Emily's visit, her basket of treats, her courteous smile, the way she had uttered phrases like sincere peace, the same way one might discuss proper burial technique. The war game was simple by design. Imperial Tactical Unit Delta, 120 trained troops, equipped with standard-issue exosuits and plasma scatter arms, would engage human Team Omega, 25 volunteers, from opposite ends of the simulated terrain. Objective: capture the neutral beacon in the center. Sluzd's voice crackled across the internal comms. "Let the mammals have their fun. We will watch, learn, and remind them who rules the stars." The countdown began. Emily didn't give a rousing speech. She didn't need to. Her team watched her, and that was enough. When the siren screamed and the simulated battlefield activated, they vanished. Like smoke. 1 second they were standing on the metal dais, and the next, gone. No traces. No residual heat. Just silence. Varnix blinked. "Where?" The analyst scrambled, switching to thermal imaging, radar, biosignature triangulation. They're not cloaked," muttered one. "They've just dispersed." On the moon's surface, Imperial Unit Delta advanced. Their formation was textbook: phalanx sweep, aerial recon drones, wide-angle scans. Their commander barked orders with mechanical efficiency. Then the recon drone dropped out of the sky. No explosion, no visual contact. It simply blinked out of existence, like it had lost interest in surveillance. Then came the first trap. A whine of metal snapped through the air, compressed coil, old Earth design. A pressure wire. The lead Imperial scout's leg jerked sideways with an audible crunch, and he dropped screaming. "Primitive," hissed Sluzd. "Efficient," corrected Varnix, almost involuntarily. The battlefield shimmered with shifting strategies. The humans had mapped the terrain beforehand, but not in the way the Empire expected. They didn't just memorize coordinates. They felt the land. Like predators learning the rhythm of prey paths, they had turned the moon into a breathing entity, one that fought alongside them. Delta's formation fractured. The humans hadn't engaged them directly. Instead, they heard it. One false radio transmission here, one echoed footstep there. Every sound was bait. Every pause a trap. At minute 17, Emily sent a message. It wasn't encrypted. It wasn't formal. It was addressed to the Delta commander personally. Hey, Commander Reltech. Just wanted to check. Was that your primary power relay we borrowed? If not, no worries. But if it was, you might notice your HUD's going a bit twitchy. Reltech roared, demanding manual overrides. But the feedback loop had already begun. Half the exosuits seized mid-motion. One soldier fell backward into a ravine, screaming until the autocut silenced his feed. Sluz stood now. His arms twitched with agitation. This isn't combat, he snapped. This is sabotage. It's asymmetrical warfare, said Varnix. And the humans seemed to enjoy it. Back on the field, Emily's team still hadn't been seen. But their presence was undeniable. Smoke bombs deployed from unexpected angles. Flashbangs timed with drone flyovers. Delta began firing blind, spooked by motion that didn't exist. Then came the disarming. Not death, not brutality, but disassembly. The next recovered cam feed showed a Delta soldier, hands zip-tied behind his back with his own utility cable, sitting calmly against a rock. In front of him lay a ration bar, a bottle of purified water, and a handwritten note. Stay hydrated. We'll return your armor when we're done borrowing it. Hugs and kisses, Team Omega. Slust made an inhuman noise. Varnix leaned closer. They're mocking us. No. They're doing worse, Slust hissed. They're succeeding. By minute 32, the beacon was secured. But not by storm. Not by siege. The humans simply appeared around it, uninjured, unhurried. Emily knelt beside the device, opened the control panel, and reprogrammed its signature. When Delta finally stumbled onto the site, half mad with panic and malfunctions, all they found was a blinking message. Congratulations. You've been simulated. For feedback, press 1. One of the analysts groaned. Sluzd cut the feed. The silence was thick. Then Emily's voice came through a private line, directly to Sluzd and Varnix. I'd like to formally thank you for the opportunity. My team found the exercise refreshing. If you'd like a rematch, we'd be happy to run it again. Maybe with fewer advantages on our side this time. Just to keep it fair. There was a pause. The tone never changed. Oh, and I've sent you a small compilation of our training footage. Might help your debrief. Please do share with your tacticians. The line went dead. Sluzd stood still, vibrating. Compile their methods, he ordered. They didn't use any, Varnix said softly. That's what's terrifying. They didn't stick to one approach. They used 5, 10, maybe more. And each time they adjusted mid-action. Sluzd turned to him. They're showboating. They're strategizing. Constantly. Then they must be studied, broken down, categorized. Varnix hesitated, then said the words anyway. Sir, what if they can't be? It was not well received. Back aboard the human vessel, a modest frigate named Valediction, Emily sipped coffee from a metal mug and reviewed the footage from her own perspective. Her team celebrated lightly, no overindulgence. They understood that this wasn't a game. Not really. It was diplomacy dressed in camouflage. Her second-in-command, Staff Sergeant Kim Dorsey, leaned in. You think they bought the message? Emily smiled faintly. I think they're starting to understand that we don't bluff. We smile. It just looks similar. Dorsey chuckled. Sluzd looked ready to molt right out of his pompous shell. They're used to dominance, not resistance, and certainly not humor. What's next? Emily turned her gaze to the viewport, where the Empire's cruiser still orbited above like a bloated eye. Now, we wait. We let them panic. Panic breeds honesty. We need to know who they really are. On the cruiser, the internal command deck had transformed into a pressure chamber of anxiety and theoretical models. Analysts argued over doctrines. Should they have underestimated humans? Were the simulations rigged? Was it all a ruse? The question they didn't ask, not aloud, was the one Varnix couldn't get out of his mind. What would happen if the humans stopped pretending? He requested access to Earth military history, not the public footage, the classified stuff, the things humans kept off the shared channels. He wanted real battles, not training simulations. Not joint exercises. Not sterilized glory reels. He was denied. Officially. Unofficially. His terminal lit up with a single encrypted file the next morning. A gift. From Emily. No message. Just the title. Fall of Kestrin, Shaw Command. Varnix hesitated for a full minute before opening it. The first 5 seconds told him everything he needed to know. No music. No narration. Just Emily, mud-covered, blood on her sleeve, giving orders as the sky rained fire. Her voice was calm, soothing. She was reassuring a medic whose hands were shaking. She used the same tone one might use when coaxing a child into sleep. The footage rolled on. Tactics layered atop intuition. Civilian evacuations organized between sniper volleys. Communications rerouted through destroyed infrastructure. Enemy command shattered with a single misdirection. One Varnix would have never caught had he not rewound the footage 3 times. She ended the battle not with triumph, but with silence. Sitting on the ruins of a crumbled wall, holding the hand of a dying soldier. Just sitting. Just waiting. There was something unholy about it. Not evil, but unavoidable. Like gravity. Varnix closed the file. He didn't sleep that night. When morning came, he submitted his report. It was short. Lieutenant Commander Emily Shaw demonstrates a combat philosophy that combines emotional detachment, improvisational brilliance, and psychological manipulation. Human warfare is not theatrical. It is quiet. It is deliberate. It is friendly, until it is not. I advise reconsidering our assumptions. I strongly recommend peace. He signed it, sent it, and waited. Slust read it, crumpled it, laughed. But he didn't laugh as loudly as before. Later that day, a new alert pinged across the cruiser systems. Earth had requested a formal diplomatic meeting. No demands. No threats. Just tea. Slust stared at the invite and hesitated. Varnix, watching from the corner of the bridge, caught a strange expression cross the Admiral's face. Uncertainty. It was a start. And Emily, somewhere on her quiet ship, sipping her coffee, was already preparing her next move. The footage wasn't supposed to exist. Or, rather, it wasn't supposed to be accessible. Not to them. Not to the Galactic Empire. It was a grainy, uncompressed archive buried beneath outdated Earth encryption, tucked behind layers of digital dust in a section labeled classified. Cleared eyes only. That should have been enough. It would have been if Emily Shaw hadn't left a breadcrumb, a signature embedded in the metadata of the simulation report she'd shared. A barely there checksum routine constructed like a door left almost, but not quite, closed. Varnix noticed it by accident. Or instinct. Or something deeper. He wasn't sure anymore whether it was curiosity driving him or survival. He knew she wanted them to find it, just not how much she wanted them to see. He activated the archive at 3 standard hours past midnight, when the rest of the crew was either sleeping or sedating themselves with victory simulations and synthetic nectar. Alone in his chamber, lit only by the soft blue gleam of the projection interface, Varnix initiated the playback. The opening was quiet. No music. No dramatized credits. Just a cold landscape, half-ruined. Concrete buildings hollowed by shellfire. A skyline jagged with smoke. The sky the color of a wound that hadn't healed. Text scrolled briefly across the bottom. Battle of Kestrin. Civilian Zone Zeta 9, Commanding Officer. Lieutenant Commander Emily Shaw. It began like any other Terran War footage. Chaotic, fragmented, clipped audio. Soldiers shouting. Screams that blurred into static. But then the camera pivoted, stabilized, and found her. She was younger. Less gray in her hair, less steel in her posture. But the eyes were the same. Calm. Dispassionate. Calculating. She stood in the middle of a street crater, surrounded by a half-circle of makeshift barricades. Behind her, civilians cowered, a few dozen at most, wrapped in salvage coats and trembling in silence. Emily was speaking into a cracked field radio. "Coordinates confirmed," she said. "Enemy advance expected from the western alley. Civilians are prepped for evacuation. Recon confirms 3 mechanized units. Recommend ground disruption protocol and flame nets. There was a pause. The radio crackled. That's not standard doctrine, Shaw. It's not a standard battlefield. Varnix blinked. Flame nets? The camera followed her as she walked the perimeter, kneeling to adjust detonation timers and magnetic charges. She didn't bark orders. She didn't rally the troops. She simply moved, and others followed. At the 11-minute mark, the enemy arrived. Kestrin separatists, heavily armored, outnumbering her forces 5-1. They came like a flood. Her team did not resist the flood. They shaped it. First, the streets narrowed, rebar barriers collapsing in program sequence, channeling the tanks into a kill box. Then came the flame nets, intertwined wiring laced with incendiary gel, hung like clotheslines above the alleyways. Triggered manually, dropped at precisely the moment the lead units paused to deploy secondary troops. Screams. Then silence. The rest of the enemy formation stumbled forward, confused, trying to flank what had just annihilated their vanguard. But they didn't flank Emily's squad. They flanked a decoy team, mannequins propped against reflective metal and heat radiators. The entire Eastern Front was a lie. Real soldiers hit from above, dropping silently. 1 human per every 3 enemies. They didn't lose. They didn't hesitate. At the 30-minute mark, Emily knelt beside a bleeding corporal, cinching a tourniquet and whispering, "You'll be fine. You've still got to cook dinner tonight." The corporal laughed weakly, then passed out. She rose, reloaded, and resumed command without missing a step. The battle ended with a whimper. Not a cheer. Not a flag. Just the dead. Varnix sat frozen, gills fluttering in slow horror. He had seen thousands of battles. He had studied strategy from 600 species. This was something else. It wasn't that Emily's tactics were brilliant. It was that they were deeply, uncomfortably human, emotionally surgical. She turned war into empathy expressed through violence. He kept watching. The footage didn't end. It shifted. 40 minutes in, she stood over the enemy commander's body. Not triumphant, not gloating, just tired. A young medic approached her. "Ma'am, the evac transports are 5 clicks east. We've cleared the civilians." "Good." Emily turned, and for the first time, looked directly into the recording drone. Her voice dropped. "Make sure this isn't edited." The feed jumped. New scene. Same planet. Different time. A room, collapsed roof, candlelight filtering through broken glass. Emily sat cross-legged with 2 children in her lap, each no older than 5. One of them asked, "Did we win?" Emily didn't smile. She wrapped her arms around them. "No one wins in war, sweetheart. We just try to lose slower than the other guy." And then the video ended. Varnix sat in silence for a long time. He didn't write a report that night. He didn't even move. By the time he emerged from his quarters, the footage had already circulated. Not officially, but word had spread. The deck's mood had shifted. Subtly, analysts spoke quieter. Officers hesitated before mocking human inefficiency. A silence crept in, not imposed by rule, but by understanding. Sluzd summoned Varnix the next day. The Admiral's office was colder than usual, not temperature-wise, spiritually, as if some invisible presence had reminded the walls of their own impermanence. "So," Sluzd said, "it was you." Varnix didn't deny it. "You accessed classified footage. She left it for us. She baited you. She warned us." Sluzd leaned forward, all bluster gone. "Why?" Varnix's throat pulsed. "Because she wants peace. By scaring us into it." Varnix looked away. Maybe she believes fear is the only language we'd understand." Sluzd stood, pacing now, muttering, "This is a game. A psychological one. We can't afford to let them control the narrative. If we admit we're intimidated, we surrender leverage." "They don't want leverage," Varnix said. "They want respect. But they'll take fear if we won't give it." The Admiral stopped. "Then what do you propose?" "Send a delegation. Meet them on their terms. Speak like equals, not rulers." Sluzd snorted. "That's surrender. It's survival." A long silence. Then Sluz turned to the viewport. The Earth vessel shimmered in orbit, modest and unmoved. Emily hadn't contacted them since the footage drop. She didn't need to. Sluz's next words were quiet. Draft a peace proposal. Varnix blinked. Sir. If they want fear, let's pretend we're afraid. If they want peace, let's offer it. Either way, we gain time. And time, Varnix, is the currency of empires. He left without waiting for a reply. That evening, as the Empire's peace delegation prepared for transmission, Emily sat in her command chamber, reviewing the same footage. Her expression never changed. Dorsey joined her, holding 2 mugs of dark roast. You think it landed? They watched, Emily said. That's all that mattered. Won't they retaliate? Get angry? They might, but they won't misunderstand. She accepted the coffee, sipped, then added almost as an afterthought, fear doesn't come from what people see. It comes from what they realize after. Dorsey chuckled softly. You've got a real gift for terrifying diplomacy. Emily looked up, eyes calm. No, I've got a real memory. Dorsey paused. Of Kestrin. Of every time we tried talking first and got ignored. The room settled into silence. Outside, the stars shimmered, and Earth waited. It didn't posture. It didn't bluff. Because the war footage they'd watched wasn't a threat. It was a courtesy. The Imperial delegation ship descended over Earth like a cautious hand reaching toward a coiled snake. It arrived unarmed, painted in neutral gray, transmitting constant peace signals with the frequency of a nervous heartbeat. For the first time in centuries, the Empire came not to demand, not to dictate, but to listen. Emily Shaw watched its approach from a wide bay window on the Earth Embassy complex in Geneva, a modest structure, part marble, part steel, built over what had once been a museum. Her hands were folded behind her back. She wore no armor, no insignia beyond the simple blue pin of the Terran Defense Accord. To an alien eye, she might have looked underdressed. To her own people, she looked like a warning wrapped in calm. Varnix was the first to disembark. He stepped onto the platform with the posture of a scholar pretending to be a diplomat. His fingers twitched at his sides. His breath came in deliberate rhythm. He'd studied Emily's voice so many times. He half expected to hear it before she spoke. She didn't disappoint. Welcome to Earth, Varnix. Her voice was warm, inviting, perfectly modulated. I hope your journey wasn't too uncomfortable. We've adjusted gravity to your preferred threshold. It was considerate, he managed, bowing low. And surprising. There were no guards, no turrets, not even a scan. Emily smiled just slightly. We didn't think you'd appreciate theater. We prefer honesty. Behind her, the human delegation stood relaxed. Not formal, not posturing, just present. They wore civilian clothes, drank coffee, made idle observations about the weather. One man was reading a newspaper upside down. Another offered snacks. No weapons in sight. No defenses on display. Yet Varnix had never felt more surrounded. They moved into a conference chamber. Sunlight filtered through thick windows. There was no artificial lighting. Everything was natural. Too natural. He sat across from her, flanked by 2 junior diplomats whose scales flickered nervously. Emily, alone, crossed one leg over the other and regarded him with interest, not intensity. You requested peace, she said, tone neutral. Let's discuss what that actually means to you. Varnix hesitated. Our intention was never hostility, merely caution. You hovered warships over our planet. Standard protocol. You accessed our classified records. He cleared his throat. Unintentional. She tilted her head. Deliberate, actually. I left that archive unlocked. There was no accusation in her voice. Just fact. The room went still. Why? He asked, despite knowing the answer. So you'd stop underestimating us. He nodded slowly. You succeeded. Her smile returned. That wasn't the goal. The goal was to let you choose peace with your eyes open. From the corner of the room, Dorsey entered carrying a stack of binders, real paper, and placed them before the Empire's representatives. Emily gestured casually. Those are peace terms. We wrote them 2 months ago. Before your war games. Before the footage. We assumed it would come to this. But you didn't force it. We gave you the opportunity to make the right decision. We're always polite. He stared at the stack, fingers resting on the top sheet. The first clause simply read, Mutual Non-Aggression Agreement with Cultural Transparency. Cultural transparency, Varnix echoed. That's vague. It's specific, Emily said. It means we show you exactly what we are. You just have to believe it. Believe what? That we are telling you the truth. And what truth is that? Emily leaned forward slightly, her tone softening, like a teacher correcting a misunderstanding. That Earth doesn't posture. We don't threaten. We don't brag. We warn. Varnix's diplomats fidgeted. He remained still. You think we're afraid, he said finally. I think you should be. The words weren't angry. They weren't loud. But they carved the silence like a blade. He licked dry lips. You're asking us to believe that an unarmed planet. She raised a hand, not abruptly, but just enough to silence the sentence. No, she said. I'm not asking. I'm showing. She tapped a small control pad embedded in the table. The windows dimmed. The screens around the room blinked on. No fanfare. No music. Just scenes. Humans farming on Mars. Mining ice on Ganymede. Training in Arctic fields under auroras. Children learning tactical pattern recognition as playground games. Civilian drill weekends masked as charity runs. Music festivals with subtle evacuation route tests. Podcasts that embedded encrypted messages. Recipes that doubled as chemical supply inventories. Every single one of them smiling. Varnix recognized the implications faster than his colleagues. You've militarized your entire population. We've prepared, Emily corrected. Even your civilians. Especially them. You mistook chaos for disorganization. Humor for weakness. Empathy for softness. And the cooking blogs? Oh, she said with a small shrug, those were my idea. The feed shifted again. Now, satellite imagery. From the Empire's own archives. Earth's orbital pattern. Peaceful. Empty. Until the overlays began. Dots. Dozens. Hundreds. Hidden launch platforms camouflaged as weather stations. Microsatellites tethered into dense communications webs. Not weapons. Yet. But all convertible. All dual use. All non-weaponized, Varnix said, as if to comfort himself. For now, Emily replied. She let the silence hold. Varnix's voice came slow, deliberate. You never intended to fight us. No. But you could have. She nodded. And still could. He stood, pacing now, faster than he meant to. You held back. You designed this reveal. You showed us your war footage. You led us through a simulation you knew you'd win. You leaked footage you pretended to protect. It wasn't pretense. It was strategy. Why? She stood too, slowly, calmly, to give you an out, to give us a future where we didn't need to become what we trained to be. Her voice held the weight of memory. We've seen what war does, not just to bodies, to souls, to identity. The last time we lost a continent, we invented a better way to end a war. The next time, we made sure we'd never be outpaced again. She stepped closer, not aggressive, not threatening, but close. And now, Varnix, you've seen it. All of it. We gave you truth, wrapped in courtesy, delivered with a smile. He was trembling. Emily extended a hand. Take the treaty. He stared. We'll be good allies. The best even. Loyal. Resourceful. Curious. But if you come for us, if you ever mistake kindness for submission again. She leaned in. You'll find the apex predator doesn't roar. It whispers. He took her hand. The room brightened. Dorsey exhaled. Somewhere outside, a dog barked. A child laughed. The universe shifted. Back aboard the cruiser, Slust read the treaty with expressionless eyes. Behind him, screens showed images of Earth's surface. Peaceful. Vibrant. Ready. He said nothing for a long time. Then, we can never attack them. No, Varnix said. Not because they're stronger, Slust murmured. Because they're prepared to be. And they don't need to prove it. Sluzz turned off the screen. Let them keep their peace. We've seen their war. Earth returned to calm. No parades. No declarations. Just the soft, smiling silence of a species that had earned its place and didn't need to ask for it.